Hello, and we are live. Today we are with a very good friend of mine. Her name is Lucia Font. She's originally from Costa Rica. We met about 7 years ago here in Australia, and today we're here with her to get to know a little bit about her story, how she came to Australia, and most importantly, how her life was transformed when she met God, when she gave her life to Jesus about 15 years ago. So, yeah, thanks again, Lou.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I'm excited.
Uh, First of all, congratulations again on she's pregnant. So she's about, what is it, 6 months now? Ish?
Almost.
Almost
Yes.
6 months. So, congratulations on that. And okay, let's dive in. So, Lou, you are, originally born in Costa Rica, and you're born into this family. Costa Rica has that, or South America in general, it's a Catholic background. If you could just share with us today a little bit of your story and your background, how you grew up, and how was your relationship and your knowledge with God in general and the church.
In Costa Rica, it's like a Catholic country, let's call it like that. And so I kind of grew up with a Catholic background, but in general, not really practicing faith, let's say. And so I had knowledge of God, but then it was more like, a big idea. Yes, God probably exists, and, you know, beautiful nature. There has to be something out there. But apart from that, there was nothing. It was later in life, I would say, when I was in university, thanks to a friend, that I got invited to a group, and I had the opportunity to, start actually to getting to know God in a different way.
What happened? Was that like a specific date or specific moment or an event, or how was that?
Yeah, I guess. Well, at that season in my life, a lot of I was going through a lot of changes. So I was in university. I had been working full time in HP or Hewlett Packard. I had a good job, a good position. I had been experiencing, like a lot of growth there. I was, dating. I used to dance ballet at that time. So I had all these activities, and I was, let's say, accomplished or successful at that stage in my life. And I had everything I wanted in a way. But at the same time, there was something that I could see was missing. So I was a little bit kind of like I was questioning myself many things, and I was in a way a little bit uncomfortable. I was looking for something. So I remember I decided to quit that job, like let's say what they called a successful job in HP. And I decided to go and work part time at a zoo. And
Wow.
then I decided to break up with my boyfriend at the time. And I just did a lot of, big changes that I don't know. I could just see that it's what I just wanted more space, and I was looking for something. So I just wanted to have that time to actually breathe and be present and even be able to just walk, you know, on the street with time and not be rushing and not be from one thing to the other. So I think that's where I started just questioning myself. And at that point, I was in uni, like I said before, and I had a friend that invited me to a group. And I wasn't very sure about what this group was about, but I was interested in the group because it was in an advertising agency, and I was in a famous advertising agency, and I was currently studying advertising.
Yep.
So that was kind of like relevant for me at the time. I accepted the invitation and decided to go to this meeting with my friend. I was looking for a purpose, and maybe I wouldn't have called it God at that time because I couldn't see it that way. But I was looking for purpose. Sense of purpose, like knowing what I was good for, or like I'm like there has to be something else in this. Like yes, I get like I get it. It's good to work. It's good to earn money. It's good to have good things. I mean, all of that seemed to be okay. I like my relationship, but all of these things seem to be not. It wasn't that they were not enough. It was like I feel like I'm focusing on the wrong thing. And not that those things were bad in themselves, they were just, I was just not focused in the right thing. And I was like, I was just dealing with those questions of like, so what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to be doing? What's my purpose? Where am I going? What's all of this? I guess
That's
that's
good.
where I was like kind of like just, a little bit of a conflict in my head or my heart.
And I think you were very, I guess, blessed slash lucky, depends how or who's listening to this, because you went through that process of reflection about life very early in your life. A lot of people go into a crisis mode when they are in their late 30s or early 30s. But I guess you were in your, what, early 20s maybe?
Yes, I was probably, yeah, early 20s. So, between my 20s and 2022.
You listen to your friend, she invites you to this group, and you're like, all right, I'll go there. And what happens when you go? What's your first impressions? What's your first thoughts?
Yeah, I guess, well, when I first went, like the first day that I went to this group, it was actually really special because I I could see that there was something different in the environment, even though there were young people like me, and they were, they seemed to be like in a similar season than me, whether studying or working. And even I could see like some familiar faces. There was like a sense of connection and community that it was very special. Like I could see that they were just, really nice to each other, kind to each other, and there was just like a peaceful environment. So I could sense that first, and that was very special. And the person that shared that evening really spoke to what I needed to hear in that season of my life. Again, and it was just like it felt like he was speaking to me. So I realized that I'm like, wow, this is actually something that it's really personal. It's really relevant to me at the moment, and it's something that I want to know more about. What is it that he's saying? What is it? Like I think he connected a lot of thoughts that I was like, okay, this is actually what I've been feeling or what I've been sensing in my life. That lack or this something that is missing, and I was like, I need to come back. I need to hear more about this, whatever this is. And I decided to continue coming back every week for years. It was more like, okay, there is something about my life right now that even though it looks good, is it really, am I really practicing what I want to see results in my life in the future? And that really just made me question. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing good things, but are they really what I am, you know, preparing myself for in the future? So I think that was some of the things that I was just, questioning myself with.
So you get to start getting involved in these groups, and you start going, you start meeting people, you start making friendships. Is there a moment during that process where is it like slow and steady, or is there anything that when you're going through that you something happens and you're like, wow, this is the thing that I was looking for? Did you start to find answers? Did you start to feel peace? Did you start to sort of sense that, oh, this feels right, it feels like I'm in the right place?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, well, for me, it was pretty, like I would say in a short period of time, a lot of things happen, small things, but they did impact me a lot. So I remember that after going to this group for a few weeks, maybe not even maybe a month, like I decided to join a what they call a Bible study or a connect
Hmm.
group. So this was a small group that was intentional in studying the Bible in more depth, and you would also be able to just have conversations with other people in a small group. And that really started to open my eyes to God, to actually not seeing God as religion, but actually as having a relationship with my creator. And I started to see that in a different way, and also understanding Jesus, who Jesus was, what he did for me, like understanding that even though I thought I was a good person, I did have a lot of flaws or limitations in a way, and understanding that that was also something that I was carrying, and that I understood, like, Jesus' work on the cross and what he did for me, and why I needed his salvation and why I needed something different. Like it just started to make sense to me why I needed something else in my life, and why and this is a relationship, I guess, that I hadn't seen before, that I can actually have a relationship with God and with Jesus, and I could find peace and I can find purpose, and I could even find more of myself there without having to find anything else out there. I didn't have to label myself as anybody or anything, because of my job, because of my status, because of my money, or because of my position, or because of how I look. Like all of those things is just like external things, but I could see that my value wasn't in any of those things. And I can actually find a value as Lucia, as a daughter of God, and without putting all of those other things as a priority. So all of that started to kind of make sense, and just make me really feel different about myself and about life. So my perspective about life started to change, and all of a sudden I could see myself doing, let's say, better things, or I could see that I'm like, oh, I don't feel like going out like I've been doing, like every weekend, going to a bar and like drinking, and again, not because those things in themselves were bad. It's just like, well, I'm just doing this without any purpose. Like, what am I doing this for? And I found myself sharing more with people, actually doing activities that meant thinking about other people, not thinking only about myself, but actually doing things with more purpose, like connecting with people in a deeper way, in more meaningful relationships, in healthier relationships. And this leading me to actually like wanting to help other people, or see other people's needs and see other people in a different way, and not just make life about me, which is kind of our human tendency.
Default. Back home in South America, or I would say even here, we grow up with that definition or that idea of success, and how we have to fulfill our identity based on what job we have, what car we drive, what house we have, what clothes we wear, what school do we go to. It's all this fake surrounding that our identity is based on. And I went through a very similar process, very, very similar process. And I think I'm still cleaning or healing out of that identity. But being a Christian for the last 7 years, I've been letting it go slowly. So it's so beautiful how we change, or how God changes our way of thinking and behaving. As I reflect, like friendship, it's so important, because I think God has a perfect plan, right? And you were able to get to know God through a friend that once invited you to this group, and then you continue, right? And I remember how when I came to Australia, you were the first person that I met at church. I was by myself, no friends, no family, no one. And I just go to this church, and I get connected to you. And you invite me to your Connect group, which was a hiking Connect group, going to walks in the middle of nature and reflecting and praying and all of that. And it's so beautiful how when you're sharing your story, I feel myself reflected in your story. You were that person to me as your friend was to you. And I remember going to that Connect group, or that group of friends, and I remember thinking, these people are so different, and they're so nice and so friendly, with no second or other intentions. Because in the world, relationships are very transactional a lot of the time. Like, I give you this, but then I get this. I give you this, but then I get this. And I would remember, like, you guys would just invite me, or you would call us, and like, it was a very pure, honest, serving kind of relationship. And God used you and Karen to speak to me, and to start my journey as a Christian. So thanks again for that. Thanks for letting yourself be used by God. What would you say has been your journey as getting to know God, getting to know Jesus, your journey as a Christian?
Well, I guess, life is always challenging. You have your ups and downs, and you realize that life is like that. You just have ups and downs. And, like sometimes we're trying to pursue even this perfect life, or what we think it's a perfect life according to what we've been told, or we've seen in the media, or what we've seen in the world. But at the end of the day, there's not such thing as a perfect life, and we're actually just, in a journey of learning, of growing, where sometimes things go our way or a better way, and some things they don't. So I guess even as I started, as I continue my walk with God, I started to see that my perspective was changing. So even though like there were situations that weren't ideal in my eyes, or there were situations that were not nice or didn't appear like I wanted them to be, I could see that my perspective was showing me that I could see things, let's say, in a better way. Maybe sometimes my focus had been very external. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, I'm worrying too much about physical things or money, or how am I going to get there, or how am I going to achieve this. And I realized that, I didn't have to focus so much on those things, but actually focus more on my heart, what was happening in my heart, what was my character, my response to people, my response to myself. So all of those things, I think were something that I could already see changing. And that helped me to face, some of my difficult situations. So for example, I remember that not long after I started my journey with God, my parents got separated. And that was definitely like a big, big, big change in my life, and definitely something that really impacted my family. So even the fact that I felt I didn't respond in a desperate way or in a crazy way, I wasn't devastated or anything like that, but I was actually able to keep my peace, and I was actually at peace in the midst of changes and the process. I think that was already a miracle. Like I could see that I was going through the process and through the journey and through the challenge, but I was feeling at peace. And I was genuinely feeling at peace. It was not even like a peace that you can explain, that you can see like, oh yeah, everything is good, or I have this, I have this, I have this. It's like,
Mm.
it wasn't about what I had. It wasn't about what I was getting from anybody. It was just an internal peace that there was nothing else. I don't know to explain it. So I would say like that was definitely God. I could tell that it was God just giving me that peace. And then in the midst of that, I was able to make wiser decisions. So even my response towards my mom, my response towards my dad, the response toward my responsibilities, the things that I was, going through at that time. I don't remember like work or studies or whatever. Like I was still able to manage those responsibilities and continue and move forward regardless, of the situation. So I was even able to just stay put, like continue my life and just be able to deal with the hardship, but also continue life. And I was able to deal with the situation with my mom and with my dad in a healthier way,
Mhm.
not judging people, not getting against people, not also feeling, like I said before, devastated or in a crisis, but actually think, more clearly and be able to make decisions that were, more, like, I would say, wiser. And through all of that process, I could just see that God was guiding me, that God was really making me feel like I wasn't on my own. And not only was He with me and He was taking me through it, but He was also giving me uh, like a community that was, you know, working alongside me. And I think that's something very big that I can see as a change when I was, before I met God, and after. That idea of like, well, you tend to think that you have to do everything on your own, and you have to be strong, and you have to be independent and do all things by yourself. But then you realize that you're actually not meant to be lived like that, because you're only one person with one set of characteristics and one set of strengths, and you actually need community and you need people around you. So even that, knowing that I had people around me, not that they were changing my situation, but they were just there to do life with me and
Mm.
go through the journey with me. that's all that I needed, that I wasn't, knowing that I wasn't alone. I think all of those things really helped me in that moment of challenge. And I can see that, now many years after that, I've gone through other challenges, like, I don't know, changing countries or changing jobs or not knowing what's going to happen with, I don't know, like a breakup or, all the situations that I've gone through in my life. I've seen that God has also been there, and He's also led me through the difficult times. He has given me peace. He has given me wisdom. He has brought the right people at the right time so I can go through those tough seasons
That,
and, come out on the other side,
yeah,
you know.
that's good what you say. And I think in my case, it's very similar. I used to think that I had to do life on my own and I had to fight on my own and I had to, be myself and don't let anyone take advantage of me. But when I met God and I gave my life to God, it was that sense of I'm not alone anymore. A lot of the times when things don't go right and I don't understand the situation, there is this level of inner peace that you were sharing that is like you just feel God is in control. And
Hmm.
even though it hurts, even though I'm confused, even though I'm frustrated, even though I want to cry, even though I don't know, whatever the problem it is, even though then I have peace. And I've tried to explain it logically, but it doesn't make any sense. It's just this inner peace that
Mhm.
surpasses every understanding. Like I cannot understand it, but I feel it and it's so good.
Sorry to interrupt you. Like, I think something very important in those moments, it's even like realizing that even though those seasons happen and those challenges come, you're actually you can see yourself coming better after those challenges than you were before, which is a very different perspective to have. Like, the world always tells you, like, oh no, you need to live a comfortable life and you have to, like, things need to be easy and you don't want struggles and you don't want difficulties. But actually you realize that even though those challenges come and tough, like, life gets tough, you can actually stay with that peace, like, keep that peace. And in the midst of the challenges, learn, grow, see things in a different way. And once you get out of that, you you are a better person. You've grown, you've stretched yourself, you have more capacity, you have more understanding, you have more to give. Like, there's so many things that actually happen in that process that at the end of the day, even though it's tough and we don't want to go through it, it actually makes you better, and it makes, it just grows you in all ways.
You said that tough moment with when your parents got divorced and they split, and but you had that inner peace. I believe, or I know there's a miracle somewhere in the middle. In the middle, if you can share a little bit of that process and that testimony with us.
Yeah, of course. Like, I guess, well, in this particular case, well, my parents, well, they had been married for, I don't know, more than 35, I think like 34 years at that point or something. But so then they decided to separate. They were separated for 8 years. And in that time, I could just have that sense of, God really put in my heart to believe for them to get back together. And in my heart, I was thinking, like, no, this can't be possible. Like, it's like, no, they just don't get along well. It's just not gonna work. And like, but I just had this sense of, like, God was putting in my heart, like, I can do the impossible. Like, just believe. And I was genuinely praying for them whenever I would have it in my heart. And I was just kind of like scared about the idea, but also believing for it. And crazy thing is that 8 years after, my dad actually reached out to my mom, and they started going out again,
Wow.
like teenagers. And it just like I was able to see the power of a prayer, the power of God just working in their lives in reconciliation, in restoration, and of course, like, I know that this might not be the case in every single story, but I've seen that in important parts, in important moments of my life, God has come and done something that it is completely out of my strength out of my reach, and he has transformed something in my life that he could, he's the only one that could have done it. Like, so that was a miracle that happened in my family, and I think it's still ongoing because they're still in their journey of like learning and growing. But yeah, that was a powerful testimony.
Did you say that there were other things that also happened that you didn't believe they could happen, but they did happen, and God made His way through?
Yeah, I guess in other areas of my life as well. Like, I think on one side, that was a big one for me. Like, definitely my parents getting back together was kind of impossible for me to happen. And then it did happen. But I've also known that, for example, later on in my life, I had this desire to travel and to get to know, other cultures. And, even in my season back then, and like the possibilities that I had, I thought that, traveling could be very hard or could be very expensive or could bring all of these like challenges. And I did have like the possibility to travel to many countries and to do all of this and things that I thought I wouldn't have been able to do in my own strength or my own capacity. And for example, to the point that later on in my life, I wanted to really study something more with the Bible and more with God, but I wasn't very sure how that was gonna, work out. Like, I was looking for options in Costa Rica, and I was looking for options of what to do, where to go, but I could sense that God was just, giving me that, like kind of this message of like, just wait, and, at the right time, there will be an opportunity, and that would be the best opportunity. And little that I know that later on I was going to be able to come to Australia, which I thought it was impossible because it was so far and so difficult and so expensive and all these ideas that I had. But actually, it was like, no, it is possible. You can travel to Australia. But I didn't even know that in that trip to Australia, I was going to have an open door to start studying what I had been wanting to study for many years, but maybe in a different context, in a very small setting. But now I had the opportunity to actually do it with a bunch of amazing people from all over the world, and just with, experiences that I had never thought would have been possible in my own strength. And that even led me to, not only study 1 year, but study for 4 to 5 years, and to the point that I'm still living in Australia today.
And married
And married with a baby on the
with a
way.
babe in the way. I don't remember all the details, but every now and then you would say, "Oh, I got a car for free." I'm like, "What? A car for free?" And then you would say, "Oh, I got, I don't know, some money came to the bank, and I got money to help me to pay the tuition for my university, or for my studies." And you had all these little miracles, but big miracles, I would say, because I've never heard anyone saying, "Oh, I got given a car." So I think God has made His way in your life in big and small moments, and it's so beautiful to see that miracles do happen, and that miracles are reality, and and He moves and He uses people the way that sometimes we don't expect, right?
Yeah, totally. And I think like that's part of even like our, us, letting go of control. Like, we live in in ways that we think we need to be in control of every detail, or we need to be even, just like doing everything on our own, right? Like we were talking before. But the thing is that, the more that you, surrender things to God, and the more that you trust Him that He's going to come through in areas that you wouldn't expect, He actually does. But the thing is that sometimes you just need to take those steps of faith, or those steps of like, okay, I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know how this is going to come through, but it's going to come through, because not because of what I'm doing, or not because of who I am, but because of who God is. And that happens when you get to know God better, and you just realize who He is and what He can do and what He's done before with other people or in your life. But then you also start remembering, like, no, He can do it again, or He can do it in this other situation. And then you put yourself in situations that are actually, uncomfortable, but at the same time where he can actually come through because you're not trying to control the situation. And he does come with provision, or he does come with um, direction or opportunity. And again, I think something important is to know that God loves to use people, and he loves us to help each other and be in community. So I think that in many of those cases, it was out of me surrendering to God and surrendering to my situation and being like, God, there's nothing I can do about this, but I know I can trust you, and I will share with people. I would be involved, and I would be open in my situations. And I could see that God would come through and would use people to bless me with a car or bless me with money, but also knowing that money and possessions were not the biggest blessing. That many times what I needed from other people was a conversation, or what I needed from other people was their perspective or their wisdom. And in the same way that many times I also had something to give that was not only money, that was also other things that maybe people needed, again, a conversation or a better perspective or an encouragement. And those were other things that I could also bring and I could also give. And in that, way of, in that change of perspective and knowing that I had something to give, but I could also be open to receive, I could see God work in a more free, in a free way that was not stopping him from providing or doing little miracles in different moments of my life that where I wasn't expecting it, let's say.
Thanks for sharing your testimony. Thanks for your friendship again. One last thing, that if you could tell someone that maybe is in despair, is feeling lost, is feeling insecure about life, what would you say to that person?
Something important that we need to remember, all of us, because we all go through challenges, right? It's that, like, that challenge or that situation is not the end. Sometimes it feels that when we are going through a tough time, that's all that it is. Like, that's all that we see. That's all that it's left. And that's the end. Like, there's nothing better. There's nothing else I can do, or there's no way out of this situation. And that's just a situation, as bad as it can be. Like, I know that people have gone through situations that I can't even imagine, or I can't even compare in my life. But regardless, like, I think, there is always a way out. And I think that God is the way out. Not because everything is going to change instantly or things are not going to be difficult, but he will give us the strength, and he will give us the peace, and he will give us he will put people around us to encourage us, to support us, to help us in particular, like in specific little needs that we have. And in the midst of that, we can see that we can take a step, and then we can take another step, and then we can take another step. And right there in the midst of the craziness or the challenges, all we can see is maybe darkness. But if we just take one step and we just focus on taking that one step, I think by taking one step at a time, we will eventually see that things just start to get clearer and start to get better, even if they take time. And once we are on the other side of the challenge, we will see a lot of ways in which God was actually there for us, helping us every step of the way.
I'm believing that God has control, and if I just trust him one step at a time, I know that he's gonna hold me 1,000, a million steps ahead. So one step at a time. Thanks for sharing that, Lou. And thanks again for your time, for this conversation, for your testimony, and I'll see you around.
Yes, thank you very much. It was great.